Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of this Cast It to the King podcast, wherever you're listening on YouTube or Apple Podcast. Be sure to be watching this. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below and be sure to like this video and comment below what you thought about this episode and other episodes before. Or if you're on the Apple Podcast, be sure to give us a 5-star or whatever honest star you think the show deserves, in all honest opinion. Just don't be trolling or be smashing that 1-star for reasons that you may hate me or dislike me right now. So new year 2023. Honestly, by the way, I am by myself today. Last 3 episodes we've had with Donovan, Aaron Austin, and Mark Sieveling have been really, really awesome. And this week I'm going to go solo, and just to give some of those guys a breather. And I know some of the crew from the Life Church right now are up in New York as to the helping out, laying down the foundations for that media team to get their new facility up and running going forward for Life Church New York. So they're there for this week. They'll be back sometime on Sunday. So this week, hopefully it's going to be relatively fun and easy. And this episode is actually the debut of this new MPM 1000 condenser mic. So we'll see how this mic sounds and the dishing of this new audio board going forward. That should we get to that point of our podcast going forward and shows going forward, is that before it was just recording off of this Zoom recorder. It's still recording off the Zoom. That's the one way I can find a way to get to record the sound off the soundboard. So that's a nice avenue for me to have. But before, it was directly just 2 straight mic lines going straight into the Zoom recorder and then going forward into the, and then just extracting that from an SD card. And so, once again, we're recording this for Apple Podcasts and also for YouTube. So don't forget about that. All right. So right off the bat, if this show is going to be covering mostly about, when it comes to sports related stuff, we'll cover a general sense of what the sports landscape may be. This show, particularly since we're in Tennessee and since I am a Tennessee fan with the Titans and also with the Memphis Grizzlies here locally in Memphis, this show will mostly revolve around them. But the elephant in the room that no one can stop talking about that I'll address real quick is the injury to Damar Hamlin. I think his name is Damar Hamlin, who suffered a cardiac arrest on Monday Night Football, with only like a few handful of drives into the game before they postponed the game. So they have not officially canceled the game. What that means going forward with the NFL with trying to reschedule this game, since they said officially today that they are not going to resume the game this week, as I thought maybe they could have done on a Wednesday or Thursday, because you got that quick turnaround from Wednesday, Thursday, and then both those teams got games they have to play on Sunday. So first things first out of the way, thoughts and prayers to everyone I would imagine that's been on the show or is a part of the show. All of our thoughts and prayers go out to Damar and his family. So I'm not butchering the dude's name. Yeah, it is Damar. Okay. So yeah, Damar Hamlin. Thoughts and prayers go out to Damar and his family. Once again, such a tragic thing to happen. I mean, it's just one that it's something no one has ever seen before, apparently, in the NFL. And quite frankly, I mean, again, if it's never been seen before, then no one's seen it, including me. So me as a almost 30-year-old man, seeing that as it was happening was quite awkward to watch it just left me, puzzled. I actually didn't watch the game because every single night when I'm not, on Monday nights that I don't watch a football game, I sometimes just go, I may not watch the game, and then just before I go to bed, I'll always check my phone and be like, who won tonight? And so, Southern sweet tea, by the way. Awesome stuff to drink when you cook it, when you boil it and do it right. Anyway, sorry about that. Not to get ahead of ourselves in terms of the game itself, because that's going to handle itself out on the NFL side, but all of our thoughts and prayers go to Damar, his family, his teammates, especially the Bills and Bengals players that were there to see it in person. Such a thing to happen the way it did was unprecedented. Never happened before, and a little bit shocking in a way of how it happened, because we had never in the history of the NFL, with all the concussions and all the protocols and whatnot, we had never had an instance where someone had died on an NFL football field. So right now, last I heard was that he apparently had a pulse when they took him into the ambulance, but they had to put him into sleep so they could put a tube down his down his mouth and whatnot. So for medical terms, my wife knows more about that than I do. So, and it's just one of those. Again, this is not an indictment on the NFL. It's not an indictment on Trey Higgins or T. Higgins, who laid out the hit and or whatnot, because Damar's trying to tackle him on a catching pass play. So it's just one of those freak accidents that just happened, because it never happens before. We've had folks go down with concussions. We've had folks go down with broken boned legs. A Steelers player years ago got hit and he was paralyzed. We've had folks break their arms. We've seen so many horrific things in the NFL. And even though this is a first for such a cardiac arrest to happen, not since Gary Kubiak, I want to say, of the Houston Texans a while ago, like way back when he was the head coach. I don't know if it was for the Houston Texans or Denver Broncos, where he collapsed on the sidelines during play, actually. So of a stroke or a cardiac arrest. What that is, I don't know off the top of my head right now. So not since that has an injury like this happened in the NFL. So going forward, put aside all the Damar talk of him in critical condition, which again we'll continue to say that we hope he recovers well and that going forward he'll be able to play again, hopefully in the NFL. In terms of the actual game itself, what do you do to make up this game? Is the question that has to be brought up eventually. And so I'm going to try to tackle that right now. And so going forward, because the question has to be asked eventually, is how are they going to proceed with this game? And we got word from the NFL today is that they will not resume play this week. So what does that mean for Buffalo's and Cincinnati's Week 18 games against their rivals, respectively against the Patriots and the Ravens? I'm assuming they're still going to play that as is on the schedule. But to play devil's advocate, the best way they could probably do this going forward is by way of it all depends on how the players and whatnot are handling it right now, because it seems like, again, it may change by the time this episode goes up on a Wednesday or a Thursday, is that right now my best guess at this is that it's going to be a situation where everyone takes a week, like the NFL just essentially pushes everything back a week leading up to the Super Bowl, essentially. So The Super Bowl will stay put on its February date. That is not moving at all because of contracts, money, and all sorts of hotel-related money stuff that the NFL has piped in through Arizona. Last I checked, it's in Arizona this year. So the Super Bowl date is not moving an inch. So the most the NFL can do now that, because this game is so late into the year, the best thing they can do, in my honest opinion, without disrupting the flow of game plan or the flow of player activity and whatnot, is that everyone gets a week off essentially in the NFL. This week will be this current week we are in is a week off per se for Cincinnati and Buffalo. And then you would resume this play either on a Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. This current week. And then the following week is week 18 with all of your implications for playoff seeding, who's in the playoffs, who's not in the playoffs. And then as you move everything from week 18 back a week into deep January and February, you can honestly what that will result in is either a pushback of the Pro Bowl after the Super Bowl, or just cancel the freaking thing. In all honesty, I would just go out and just outright cancel it, because when they say they're going to reformat this Pro Bowl for it to be flag football, then, again, if it wasn't already, the Pro Bowl is just a popularity contest. There's no credence anymore to what the Pro Bowl used to be in the past. And it doesn't have any substance to it going forward. In all honest opinion, if anything, if they're not going to treat the Pro Bowl to the standard that it used to be in the even in the late, even in early 2010s, throughout the 2000s, 90s, and 80s of what the Pro Bowl used to be, you just need to not do the Pro Bowl outright. You got to do something else, because flag football for a Pro Bowl, what are you supposed to do if you're a defensive lineman, or an offensive lineman? It's just, I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. But right now, the logical thing to do is push everything back around to the Super Bowl, where by the time the NFC and AFC championships game come around, usually after those games, you'll have a 2-week buffer period between that game and the Super Bowl. In this scenario that I'm proposing is that gameplay would just be a 1-week turnaround instead of a 2-week turnaround. So literally, you're going to have playoff games back to back weeks, with wild card, next week divisional round, next week championship round, next week is the Super Bowl, and that's your season right there. So that's probably the route they may take. So I honestly don't know what route they may take going forward. And so, but in terms of this particular channel and the fandom that this channel covers is, one, the Tennessee Titans right now. And call me an outlier of a Titans fan right now if you want to, because I'm ashamed. I am disheartened. I am downtrodden. I feel pathetic in terms of feeling pathetic for this. This team is pathetic right now. As a fan, I am almost. There's no way to describe this right now, because our football team sucks right now. It sucks on offense. It sucks with our coaching right now with Todd Downing. We have a strength and conditioning coach that's been there since 2019, and in the last 3 years, we have been injured to Hades and back. I'm not going to say any swear words on the show. So, again, for those that don't know, and I'll just lay down the groundwork right here. Yes, this is a podcast, but my personal rule that I have set for this show is for any guest that I invite on for any of the episodes we've had in the past and going forward, is that this podcast is going to follow this is essentially the same radio rules that the that you would hear on the radio. So you'll hear like every other like cuss word or bad word being bleeped out, and so we're gonna do the same here. So there's no profanity, no bleepity bleep. So call that what you will. Anyway, we've been injured to, you know what? I can say the word. We've been injured to hell and back. We've been injured to hell and back because it's ridiculous. And the third and fourth chances that Vrabel gives our strength and conditioning coach is ridiculous because we've just placed a few more players on IR. I've lost count of how many, like, it's once again the second straight year in a row where the Titans lead the NFL in players played, games played, and folks on IR. This is ridiculous. This is getting out of hand. If you're a staunch supporter of the Titans. Now on offense, last time we were on this podcast actually, it was going into the Thursday night football game, and Malik Willis was coming off of a stingy game against the Houston Texans, and then later on Thursday, it was announced that Joshua Dobbs was going to be starting over Malik Willis, to which, conflated as I was, there's nothing else I can say about this team because I'm well past the point of bewildered right now because this football I am losing words of how I feel about this football team in the most frustrated senses right now. Because right now, as we stand, the Jacksonville Jaguars hold first place in the AFC South. Tennessee's number 2, but here's the kicker here. They're number 2. But right now, if the season ended, they have the 11th overall pick in the NFL draft. And if they win this Saturday against the Jaguars, that pick goes from 11 to the 20s. And does anybody believe that as this football team is constructed right now, that this Tennessee Titans football team can win? Let alone just get to the Super Bowl, because we are not making the Super Bowl. I can tell you that right now. Can we win a playoff game? Can we win one home playoff game? Which, if you're keeping score, the last time we had a home playoff game, my parents were at that game in 2003 or 2. It was against the Steelers and Bill Cowher. We went on to the AFC Championship game against the Raiders. Lost that game, sadly, because the Raiders got stomped by the Buccaneers. So who knows what history would have been if we beat the Raiders that year. But that was the year where our kicker did the acting job, missed the field goal, but then did the acting job and got the referee to call roughing the kicker on us. And then he makes the second try at the field goal and wins it for Tennessee. That was their last home playoff win. All the way back to, it was the 2002 season. In January of 2003 was their last home playoff win. We've had since then, we have lost at home to the following. We've lost to the Ravens in 2008. And then the last few times we just had home playoff games, which is against back-to-back against the Ravens. And now, recently, last year, to the Bengals. Yeah, that's your last. That is your last 3 home playoff games since 2003. The rest have been on the road since we launched back into the playoffs in 2007 and then launched back into the playoffs in 2017, 10 years later. Long 10 years for as long as I've been a Titan fan. But right now, you're in a lose-lose scenario. If you have been given such a unique opportunity right now in that right now you are at the 11th overall pick right now. And these quarterbacks that are coming out of the draft are said to be next generational Andrew Luck type of quarterbacks. And Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Will Levis coming out Kentucky as the third quarterback. I do not trust Richardson, the Florida quarterback. I do not trust him at all. If we pick him, I'm going to be waving the white flag and saying, unless we have good offensive play calling, if we fire Downing this year, I do not expect this offensive staff to coach up him, Will Levis, or You know what? Any of the quarterbacks. You know what? That should be coming with the caveat. I am not happy with our 11th overall pick and potentially drafting a new quarterback if Todd Downing is still the play caller. If he is still on the staff by the time we get to the 23 draft, if Todd Downing is still on the staff, I am not going to be happy, or I'm not going to be holding my breath on how well or how little these picks are. The next quarterback's going to do, because we have a crappy offensive system right now. And going into Jacksonville, you're injured like crazy. And for those Titan fans out there, to get back to my point, I feel like I'm the rarity of Titan fans trying to criticizing them. And I'm actually rooting for us to lose, because I want us to have a better draft pick. For those that are rooting for us to win, and those that are coming out as Joshua Dobbs fans, just out of the bunker somewhere. I don't know where these Titan fans been, because they apparently hate Malik Willis, but they prop Joshua Dobbs on a pedestal and just scream their high praises of, oh, he got 200-some yards, but he couldn't do that in a single game. Yeah, you scored 13 points, and he had 2 dropped interceptions. One should have been for a pick 6 from Diggs that he dropped on the Cowboys. He threw 1 interception, and he scored 13 points on offense. Congratulations. I hope you're satisfied with mediocrity, Titan fans. I hope you're happy, because that is unacceptable. I do not want mediocrity, and I do not want to be a laughingstock in the NFL. That's my standard as a Titan fan. You may criticize me for what I may think. It's okay if you want to criticize what my stance is for sports and whatnot for the football team, but do not come at me and call me names or profanities of any of the sort if you're not going to back anything up to your argument, because you are the weaker human being if you do that. Because what I'd always bring to my arguments numbers, facts, and logic. And the logic right now, we have a horrible offensive play caller in Todd Downing. The numbers suggest that we have the crappiest offense in the NFL. We have the worst third down offense in the NFL. We have the worst fourth quarter offense in the NFL. And even with Derek, and for those that are Joshua Dobbs lovers out there, yes, he did good for Tennessee all those years ago. Bury that already. Just bury it. What he did in college is irrelevant to what he does in the NFL. He was in the NFL for 6 years and didn't get one lick of a start. Why is that? I'll wait. No, I won't wait, because the excuse is going to be pathetic on your end. Anyway, for those that are defending Joshua Dobbs for this sense of, oh, what do you expect for him to do? Score 13 points. He didn't have Derrick Henry in the backfield. Imagine if he had Derrick Henry in the backfield. Okay, the game before, Malik Willis had Derrick Henry against the Houston Texans, which the last time they played the Houston Texans, Derrick Henry ran for over 200-something yards against the Houston Texans in the win. He ran for almost $150 and only scored 14 points on offense. So which is it? Do you need Derrick Henry, or is it the quarterback play? You need to get your arguments in line, because when Tannehill was the quarterback and our offense wasn't doing good, you would rightly point to the O-line and say, we don't have a good O-line. Our left tackle, Taylor Lewan, just went down for the year with an injury, and we're in a bad spot right now. Oh, and there goes Dylan Range too. Oh, there goes Nate Davis too. Oh, there goes Ben Jones. We're screwed at the O-line. Which I knew we were going to be screwed the O-line if you watch any of our preseason games. So I digress on that part. And then also, yeah, where's your weapons? He didn't have weapons. What do you expect Tannehill to do? He doesn't have a good O-line, and he doesn't have good weapons. He only has Derrick Henry and Austin Hooper and Jeff Swain, who this offensive coordinator wants to call more Jeff Swain plays than Chigo Okonkwo plays. Let that sink in. That's a Joe Biden. I feel like Joe Biden whispering into the mic right there. Oh my goodness gracious, I'm turning into Joe Biden. That's the only political reference I'm going to give on this podcast. Oh my goodness gracious, I pulled a Joe Biden. Either way, yeah, we have an offensive coordinator that will call more Jeff Swain plays than he will Chigo Okonkwo plays or Traylon Burks plays. That's how dumbheaded our offensive coordinator is in Tennessee right now. And so you had all those excuses for Tannehill, and then he gets injured, and then he's immobile. And then he gets injured again. And then so Malik Willis comes out, and The excuse for him not doing well is, oh, he can't master the offense. He can't run a play call. He can't run a simple thing of offense. He sucks. He can't get the playbook. They only handed it off to Derrick Henry. Were they not doing that already with Tannehill? They were just doing that with Tannehill, and you weren't giving him the slack that you're giving Malik Willis right now. Because he was going through the same thing that Ryan Tannehill was doing before. He didn't have the O-line. He didn't have good receivers. And a matter of fact, he didn't have Treylon Burks only for like one game. And that was against the Houston Texans this past week. And he was only targeted for two. He was only targeted twice in the game. Treylon Burks and Malik Willis only had connection twice. That's a play calling thing. That's not a Malik Willis thing. That's a play calling issue. And so you want to say, oh, you didn't have his weapons. At least Ryan Tannehill had Treylon Burks for the majority of his time when he was healthy. And then Malik Willis only had a crack at Treylon Burks that one time, which was his last game that he started for the Tennessee Titans. So you want to make all the excuses for Malik Willis. Like, oh, he can't match our play. Well, he's not passing well. He's not scoring points. We weren't scoring points already with Tannehill. Get that through your head. We have the worst scoring team in the NFL. Then Joshua Dobbs comes in. It's like, oh my goodness, look how good he's running the offense. Look at that deep ball. Racey McMeth looks incredible. Oh my goodness, he just threw a touchdown pass. Malik couldn't do that. He hasn't thrown one touchdown pass. Wow, he can move this offense. Imagine when he gets Derrick Henry back. We're going to win the Super Bowl with Joshua Dobbs, the old Tennessee Volunteer. He's going to win us a Super Bowl. Do you realize how dumb and idiotic that sounds? That's dumb and idiotic thinking right there. The dude should have had 3 interceptions. He had a total of 2 turnovers. He should have had 5 turnovers total in that game. Gave you 13 points. And he only passed just under 300 yards, and he still gave you 13 points. Come on, guys. You got to get your arguments straight. You got to get your arguments in line and consistent. You can't pick and choose if Tannehill's the quarterback, if Malik's the quarterback, or if Joshua Dobbs is the quarterback. You got to have criticisms. You got to have your criticism and your critique of the team straight and forward and narrow. Straightforward and narrow. And so the constant of all this is Todd Downing and this offensive play calling. Last year he had A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. Man, he had a whole. You know what? I'm missing the tight ends. Who were our tight ends last year? There's Anthony Ferkser. You know what? I'll give him a pass. We didn't have much at tight end actually last year. We didn't have much at. Oh, Michael Pruitt. He was with us. Then he signed over to Atlanta. And then we had Jeff Swain, still our third tight end. So we had Anthony Ferkser, Michael Pruitt, and Jeff Swain for our tight ends. But he still had good, decent wide receivers. And the receivers right now, like Nick Westbrook-Akina, he was either our third or our fourth wide receiver on the depth chart. That's where he belongs. He's not a number 2 or number 1. This year he's tried out as a number 1. But even with all those weapons, including Derrick Henry and Deontay Foreman, on top of Dontrell Hilliard, our running back, even with all those 3 running backs, when the playoffs came around and everybody was healthy, he could not call a sane offensive play like game plan. Yes, some of those throws by Tannehill with those 3 interceptions, some were on him and some were on play calling. The 2, it was the second one on the wide receiver screen. The cornerback read that the whole way. It was too predictable for him. And Mixon came up with the interception on that second pick in the red zone. Or close to the red zone. It was close to the red zone. But either way, he read that all the way in the playoffs. He should have been fired last year. And Vrabel, for whatever reason, gave him a second chance. You have Tim Kelly on your staff that you vouched and wanted him from Houston to originally come and be offensive play caller a few years ago. But Houston declined, and then you ended up either going with Arthur Smith or Matt LaFleur. The timing, I don't know what that timing is between if it was Matt LaFleur you were trying to hire Tim Kelly for, or if it was just when we were hiring Arthur Smith. But either way, you wanted this guy your offensive coordinator. You finally get him on your staff this year as essentially You hire him as a break glass in case of emergency situation. Because you did that last year with Jim Schwartz, with Shane Bowen. If Shane Bowen this past year had done another crappy job at calling plays on defense, you were going to oust him and say, hey, Jim Schwartz, here's the defense. Run it. You were a good coordinator. Run this defense. That was all set up last year. And what happened? Shane Bowen ran with it, and still to this day, the collaboration between Shane Bowen and Jim Schwartz is brilliant that Mike Vrabel did. So I could not discredit him for that because he made that connection happen, and I am very happy that that marriage has done so well, and Jim Schwartz doesn't want to leave anytime soon, thanks to the Lord. Because I fear what this defense might be without him, actually. But back to the offense. It sucks. No matter who the quarterback is, it sucks. No matter who the receivers are, it sucks. If you're here is a rule you need to abide by. If the result is the same, but the player is different, it's not a result of the player that's on the field. It's a result of who's calling the plays on the sideline right now. And no matter when Tannehill went down for a few games and Malik came in for Houston and Kansas City, between all those games leading up to those two, with him and Malik Willis, with Tannehill and Malik Willis, the offense was still the same and production was still the same. The only difference is that Tannehill probably would have been sacked more than Malik Willis because Tannehill's dealing with the ankle sprain that he came back too early from. It's a 4 to 6 week recovery. He came back in 2 weeks. And he re-injured again. No surprise to anybody. Same with Joshua Dobbs when he came in for the Cowboys. Even without Derrick Henry as your excuse for him not doing well, this offense still was lackluster. It still produced the same results. 13 to 17 points a game. And you still lose. You still suck. Get it through your heads. It sucks. This offense cannot run properly. And the only way to do that going forward, you need to fire Todd Downing after this offseason. Preferably right after a Jacksonville game. Amy Adams, our owner, gets on the phone with Vrabel and say, hey, before you have your end-of-year press conference that Monday, you are going to fire Todd Downing. If you do not, I will fire you, and you can go with him. This will be Mike Mularkey all over again when he had to set the stage. It was 2017. Similar to this year, we start out with a good record at 7-3. And 2017, we start out 8-4. We drop our next 3 games. And now 8-7 versus the Jaguars. You win, you're in the playoffs. You lose, you go home. It was the same situation then, and coming out before that Jacksonville game in 2017, it was said that if they had lost 4 in a row and lost to Jacksonville at home and failed to make the playoffs after starting 8-4, she was going to fire Mike Mularkey because of the lack of offensive production at the time with the underdeveloping Marcus Mariota and the weapons around him. He was going to be fired because of the lack of production on offense with Marcus Mariota. Fast forward to this. No, before I get to this year. So they win. Same situation going into Kansas City versus the then Alex Smith Chiefs. If you fail to win, you will be fired, Mike Mularkey. They miraculously win, and on the infamous Marcus Mariota pass to himself catch for a touchdown. Infamously win that game against Alex Smith's last game with the Chiefs, and thus we are thrusted into the Patrick Mahomes era of the Kansas City Chiefs winning Super Bowls and being perennial AFC championships and whatnot, all because Tennessee beat Alex Smith and the Chiefs that postseason, 2017. So you lose to New England the next round, the divisional round, like 7-40, like 7-40 something, or 14-40 something. It was a blowout. Wasn't even close. it had came out that his job was safe. Mularkey's job was safe. And the caveat for him to keep his job was he had to fire his offensive coordinator in Terry Robisky. And he was basically given an ultimatum before his end-of-year press conference that the players love you, you're a good head coach, but your offensive coordinator and this production of offense is not working, and you need to fire him and hire someone else. And what happens? He says he's asked about his end-of-year press conference, and he says, I think he did a great job. I'm not making coaching changes. Next day later, he's fired. He's given his walking papers. He essentially writes his own pink slip to the Tennessee Titans, and they said, nope, we are not satisfied with this offense, and we are not going to be stagnant going forward. And so they fire Mularkey, and then they hire Mike Vrabel, who, as a head coach, has done more wonders for us than any Titans coach has done since Jeff Fisher in the early 2000s. Now, fast forward to this year. You're in back-to-back years of stagnant offense. You're in back-to-back years of disappointing offense with Todd Downing as your offensive play caller. You're entering Week 18. You're entering your do-or-die game now on a 6-game losing streak after starting out 7-3. 6 games. That's a lot. That's a lot of games to be losing going into the final week of the year, and you still have a chance to make the playoffs. A similar thing needs to be set with Mike Vrabel. Vrabel is safe. He is not being fired. He is not on the hot seat. His offensive coordinator should be, though. And so the same ultimatum needs to be made with Vrabel. Win or lose, let's say for the sake of argument, they lose a close game or they lose in a blowout. I'm actually hoping they lose in a blowout because of how much if we suck that bad in the game, the draft stats actually favors us in getting a top 10, top 9, top 8 pick. So the metrics behind that, pretty fun when you actually dive into it. So I'm hoping for a blowout, actually. Jacksonville whoops us in Duval. So let's say, for sake of argument, Jacksonville wins in whatever fashion. The game's on a Saturday. Amy Adams, our owner, gets with Mike Vrabel on the Sunday following that game. And she tells him, you're safe as head coach. You are safe as head coach. We just signed you to a long-term deal. Even though we did the same with your GM, John Robinson, but we still fired him after we signed him to a long-term deal. Because we weren't satisfied with this offense. We weren't satisfied with this roster. She needs to go in there that Sunday after we lose to the Jaguars and say, I am not satisfied with this offense, and neither are our fans. They are livid with this offense. And the one thing you can do, Vrabel, is go over there to Todd Downing and fire him. Fire Todd Downing, and your job is secure. Fire Todd Downing and admit to the fans that you have let them down, that you have paraded out there for the last 2 years, a sorry excuse for a play caller. He's not gonna say he apologizes if that happens. But you get the point. That ultimatum needs to be made with Vrabel. And if he, to his stubbornness, sticks to his guns and says, I think Todd Downing is a good play caller. We had so many injuries this year. Like, you can't judge him based off of so many injuries. If I'm Eddie Adams, if I'm the owner of the Tennessee Titans, I would say, you know what? Thanks for all you've done for us. But you just made the wrong decision going with him, and now you're out of town. Pack your bags, Vrabel. You're out of here. Pack your bags. You're out of here. I hope it does not come to that, ultimately. But if it does come to it, there are some bright spots to that. Here's reason one of a bright spot for that. If Vrabel is no longer the head coach of this football team, there is a good chance that the next head coach of this football team will be offensive oriented. And why that matters in today's NFL. is you look at the Sean McVays, you look at the now Mike McDaniel in Miami, you look at the Kyle Shanahans, you look at the, I keep forgetting his name, Philadelphia, with Jalen Hurts. Who's the heck? Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni. Look at Nick Sirianni. Look at Doug Peterson and Jacksonville. Look at Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. Well, I don't know the Vikings head coach. He came from the Sean McVay tree. Look at him. Offensive-minded head coach. Yes, Cliff Kingsbury. Not a good example, but you get the idea. The same formula that Arizona's trying to copy with the rest of them. Offensive-minded head coach means you can have a set offense in place, and if it's good, it stays here long term. And if your offense is good and your offensive coordinator goes off and gets another head coaching job, your offense does not change. Your offense is staying the same for years to come, even with your offensive coordinator now going off to be the head coach for a different football team. Your system does not change. This weekend is going to determine the next 3 to 4 years of where this franchise is going in Nashville. The worst case scenario is we win against Jacksonville, let alone we win a playoff game, and Todd Downing is still our offensive play caller. Mike Vrabel is given GM power, a la Bill O'Brien, his former boss in Houston, by the way. And then we're stagnant. We're stagnant. All because we wanted a playoff win, and we wanted to win this weekend against Jacksonville. And Mike Vrabel got his way because he's now GM of the team, and he kept around Todd Downing as offensive coordinator. That's the worst case scenario for this team. That's going to have our team stagnant for the next 3 to 4 years. And with the quarterback coming down the pipeline with Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, a few more in this draft. Then next year, you got the infamous Caleb Williams coming out of the draft, who is touted to be the top quarterback of next year's draft coming out of USC. You're going to be missing out on years to where if it doesn't work out with Malik Willis, Tannehill's not getting any younger. You're going to draft a quarterback eventually if you don't believe in Malik Willis. You're going to have to draft a quarterback. And the level of acceptance in this Titan community of just being stagnant and staying still with mediocrity puzzles me. And it baffles me. Because I thought we wanted championships. I thought we wanted Super Bowls. I did not know our team goal was to win divisions and host playoff games. I thought that was the reason why we fired John Robinson, per Amy Armstrong, our owner. I thought that's why we fired our GM, John Robinson, at the time. I was told when we fired John Robinson that our roster was not good enough to compete for a Super Bowl, for championships. If we win this weekend versus Jacksonville, and even if we don't win a playoff game, that's just icing on the cake in this worst case scenario. It won't hurt. It won't help this situation if they do win a playoff game, actually, because they're just going to be trampled on the next round. And each game that goes by that the Titans are in the season longer prolongs Todd Downing and Mike Vrabel making the case of saying, see, he can call good plays. We can win games with him. We don't need to fire him. He's not the problem. He's not the problem at all. I am so fed up with mediocrity. I'm so fed up with it. You have a team like Cleveland, Detroit, now Houston, that you expect them to lose. You expect them to be miserable. And now, actually, funny enough, this weekend, if the cards are dealt correctly and the Seahawks lose their game to Baker Mayfield, of all people, funny enough, and the Rams. Oh, excuse me. if the cards are dealt rightly there's that Detroit Green Bay season finale becomes very intriguing because I would love to see what this Detroit Lions team and Dan Campbell can do in the playoffs if they can knock off Aaron Rodgers and company at Lambeau Field. And so the thing between those franchises is I don't feel sorry for the Houston Texans. They're my rival. I want the worst for them. I want them to suck for all of eternity. I want them to suck for all eternity, to miss on all their picks, on all the quarterbacks that they draft or bring in via free agency draft or trades. I want them to suck for the rest of the time. That's how I feel about my rivals. Except for this weekend with Jacksonville. And so with the Lions and the Browns, not so much the Browns because they got Deshaun Watson now. There's just a sense of like misery with that franchise. They have suffered for so many years because they couldn't get the coaching right. They couldn't get the quarterback right. They can't get the play calling right. They can't get anything right. For some reason, these franchises are just very snake bit. And if Detroit, who has a good offense, who has evolved offensively, but they just don't have a stout defense. If they had Tennessee's defense, they'd be duking out for the number 1 spot in the NFC. Mark my words on that. I will go to my grave and say that. If they had the Titans' defense right now, like only giving up 20 sub points a game, the Detroit Lions are threatening for a number 1 seed in the NFC today. So, mark that down for a hot take. And, yeah, Detroit's defense has not been good this year, but if they make the playoffs, I will be rooting for them. I will be rooting for them as the ultimate underdog. Unlike the pathetic underdog that is Tennessee. So, again, worst case scenario is ultimately Mike Vrabel's given GM power. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, we lose to Jacksonville. We fire Todd Downing. We bring in a competent offensive-minded guy to run this offense and call plays for whoever it is. If it's Tannehill one more time next year, if it's Malik Willis finally drawing up plays for him that he's suitable, that he ran at Liberty, that he can transfer to the NFL. Or, in this case, if you lose, you can trade up now only like a handful of spots to get C.J. Stroud or one of the other top 3 quarterbacks, and there you go. You wouldn't have to give up as much if you're just 5-6 picks away. Like if you're trading with Atlanta or Detroit at 6 and 4, so I think Detroit's the 4th pick. Or are they the 6th? Detroit's the 4th pick. Seattle's the 3rd pick. That's right. If you're trading with Seattle at number 3 or Detroit at number 6, you're only giving up like 4, 5, 6 spots. Only? You're not giving up 15, 16, 17 spots to jump into the top 5 or top 10? You save yourself draft capital for this year's draft and the following drafts after this. So you have a chance to get a franchise-altering quarterback, which we have not had since Steve McNair and Warren Moon. That's how long it's been for Tennessee that they've had a revolutionary quarterback. And if Will Levis is the guy from Kentucky, then let's get a play caller in here in Tennessee where he can leverage his skill set to where he is very successful. But if we somehow draft a quarterback and Todd Downing is still our offensive play caller, good luck. This offense is not going to do any different whatsoever until that man is fired from his job. So best case scenario is they lose, they get a top 11 or top 10 pick, maybe a top 8 pick. That's the best case scenario. The unique scenario is where we lose, we don't fire Todd Downing, to where ultimately Mike Vrabel is ousted. You bring in that offensive-minded head coach, and then you draft your generational quarterback this year, or you tank, or what I don't see us doing because we have too much pride in Tennessee. We will not tank. I cannot see us tanking as much as maybe we should. Is that we should probably, if you can't get a quarterback this year, then the discussion needs to be had. 1 year of tanking for Caleb Williams. It's never going to happen. So if that's not going to happen, you got to trade up and get your quarterback this year if you don't believe in Malik Willis. That's the first thing you guys saw. Tannehill's not the long-term solution. And if you don't believe Malik Willis is the issue, if you don't believe Malik Willis is the answer, then you got to draft your quarterback this year. I'm sorry. You got to draft your quarterback this year. You got to trade up only a few spots, get your quarterback, C.J. Stroud or Will Levis. Get one of those guys, bring him in, and let's see if your franchise is on an altering course for Super Bowl contention for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Because that is something we do not have right now in Tennessee right now. We do not have that 10, 15-year outlook of what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes, with what the Bengals did with Joe Burrow, with what the Chargers did and drafting Justin Herbert, and what the Dolphins did with drafting Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know if that's, Tua, and drafting Tua. At the time, they weren't drafting Jalen Hurts to be the franchise quarterback, but they still drafted him, and they're now set with him. Buffalo with Josh Allen. He was a wild card of a quarterback that no one knew much about him from his days of Wyoming. Didn't know if he would translate in the NFL. He has translated remarkably well in the NFL. Who's to say C.J. Stroud from Ohio State or Will Levis can do the same thing? And if they can give you a resemblance of Josh Allen, then you got to take that trade. If you believe they are a franchise quarterback or a resemblance of Josh Allen, there's not enough picks you can give up to get him. You gotta get him, and get him into your place, and get to work to winning championship games, and get to work and winning Super Bowls and bringing them back to Nashville. But hey, what do I know? I just want things. I want great things for this football team. I don't want to be a laughingstock. I don't want to be a laughing mediocrity in the NFL. I don't want to be any of that. I just want good things, okay? And if that means a short-term loss and us losing in Jacksonville, in a long-term game we are winning multiple divisions with ease and winning multiple championship games and winning the Lombardi Trophy. Winning that Vincent Lombardi Trophy and bringing that back through the streets of Nashville. If it means losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars this Saturday, I am taking that deal in the heartbeat. And everybody will, in hindsight. But right now, they are short-sighted. They are not looking with the foresight of what are we going to look like 5-10 years from now if we do this right now. They are short-sighted and only focused on the now, and them being too focused on Joshua Dobbs overperforming and doing well, only being with the team for 6 to 7 days. Ooh, give me a break. Give me a break. Joshua Dobbs is not taking us to the Super Bowl. Absolutely no way. There's no way. Absolutely no way. Now that I got that out of my system. I'll wrap up with this. Memphis Grizzlies, not doing too bad ever since they lost to the Phoenix Suns and the Golden State Warriors last we checked in our last episode of Cast It to King. They've actually won 3 straight against the Raptors, the Pelicans, and the Kings. Tomorrow they face off against the Charlotte Hornets, and there's whisper and rumblings going around that we could be in the market for trading a star this year for a deep playoff run. Before the offseason and on the last episode, I discussed with Donovan how we could have benefited and we should have traded for Kevin Durant last year. Traded for Kevin Durant this past offseason. And that didn't go through, obviously. And so there are multiple options that are being thrown out there. Karl Anthony Towns has been thrown out there. Miles Turner of the Indiana Pacers. And then a few that we actually talked about last week with Kyle Kuzma from the Wizards wouldn't be too bad. I'm actually more and more on board of us getting Kyle Kuzma because we wouldn't have to give up much to get Kyle. Just a draft pick and then send Dylan Brooks back to Washington. And all honesty, this team can still make some noise and hay in the playoffs, but ultimately, when you're looking at it realistically, the Memphis Grizzlies, they will give you heart. They'll play their soul out for you, but in terms of going deep into the playoffs, that remains to be seen because we don't know what they're going to do. We haven't made a Western Conference Championship series since 2013. Since the 2012-2013 season. And we didn't even win a single game. We were an over against the San Antonio Spurs that year. So, if there's a time for it to get done, it's this year with Ja Morant and this squad, putting it together with the chemistry, getting everyone back healthy, and Ja continue to make his case for MVP. And as we stand right now, they're still a game out from the number 1 seed, actually, because now they have tiebreakers over the New Orleans Pelicans, who for the longest time could not beat Zion of all things. Finally got over that monkey. Finally got that monkey off their back when they beat Zion the other day with Ja Morant, or Zion in particular. But as I said last week, if it's between Dallas and Memphis, I'm taking Dallas. I'm still taking Dallas unless we make a trade or we make some sort of move where it helps us go over the hump and we possibly actually get one of these, either seed number 2 or seed number 1. In all honesty, as it stands right now, we have right now in the play-in tournament. You got the Trailblazers. Wow, the Suns. Wow, they're way down there actually. You have between 7 and 10. 7 is the Trailblazers. 8 is the Suns. 9 is the Warriors, and 10 is the Utah Jazz. Who would thunk the Utah Jazz are in the running for a playoff spot when they trade away all their players, except for Mike Conley, who was on my fantasy team, by the way, racking me up in assists, and icing on the cake if he's giving me points. He was my second to last player picked in my fantasy draft for my fantasy team. He was the second to last player I picked in my fantasy draft. So, and that was under a mindset that I thought he was going to get traded somewhere, like say the Lakers or say somewhere that they need a point guard for a championship run, because I was half expecting that when I was picking him because I was thinking long term. But for the short term, for where I got him, actually, he's not doing too bad, and apparently the team's not doing too bad either. Because right now, between those 14, Golden State will walk all over Utah, so that's not even a question. Then it's going to be intriguing between the Trailblazers and the Suns. If it started today, who would win between the Trailblazers and the Suns? I gotta get that edge to Portland. I gotta get that edge to Portland. Their role players have stepped up this year, especially for the time when Damian Lillard was down with an injury. A couple of those guys stepped up, scored the basket in bunches. With Phoenix, there's a chance they could drop off if they have a few more injuries. It looks like they're Chris Paul is back from an injury. I don't know if Dylan Brooks is still hampered with an injury. What's the last? They lost to the Knicks. Wow. They lost to the Knicks. And so, yeah. Dylan Brooks. No, not Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks. Devin Brooks. Yeah. Yeah, Brooks for the Suns, not Brooks for the Grizzlies. But yeah, he's been. No, I'm sounding so stupid right now. Devin Booker. My mind's all over the place tonight. I apologize. Devin Booker, if you're somehow watching this podcast. Yeah, sorry. Totally forgot your name. Started with a B. Yeah, Booker. You've been out. Yeah, you've been out for a few weeks. I mean, a few games with an injury. So back to the standings though. Yeah, I'll have to get that edge to Portland, and then it'll come down between Phoenix and Golden State. And I want Phoenix to win, just so we can get the Warriors out of the way, and we won't have to worry about that in the playoffs. I'll go ahead and right now take the Suns over the Warriors, and they'll become the 8th seed. And so that would place them right now against the Nuggets, and then we would face off against the Trailblazers, which would just be fireworks lighting up on Christmas. I do not. You know what? I don't see Sacramento. They're ranked number 5 right now. I don't see them holding that 5th spot by season's end. I don't see that happening. Pelicans, they are an injury or so away from dropping from their number 3 spot. We'll see how Zion continues to put his body together, and if he can keep this consistency going forward. Timberwolves are just a few games out from the 10th spot. The Lakers are well over 3-4 games out. Yeah, the Lakers are not going to make the playoffs this year. Sorry, LeBron fans. You're just not going to make it this year. So, that's my 2 cents on the NBA for a moment. Last thing before I go, all this talk about Ja Morant lawsuit being filed against him. Biggest nothing burger in the world. It's just one of these weirdo fans just trying to do a cash grab and wanting to smoke Ja Morant for money. So, yeah, Ja's lawyers are gonna have this case thrown out of court quickly before anything happens, because this is a waste of time kind of case. This is a nothing burger going forward. And with that, I will actually wrap up the podcast today. Hopefully we're going to have a special guest next week for our podcast. And until then, we will see what happens with Tennessee going forward with the Titans. And we'll see what the downfall is from that. And hopefully, once again, Damar Hamlin, once again, we send our thoughts and prayers to you and your family. And that we pray for a speedy recovery. So once again, thanks for watching this on YouTube or listening to this on your Apple Podcast app. Thanks for watching. My name is Joshua Mickle. Don't forget to like and subscribe on this YouTube video. Be sure to share this video and like it and comment it. Let me know what you thought. And until next time, goodbye.